Marine protected area is an area of water which is given a different set of regulations than the water surrounding it. Typically, these regulations are done to help limit or restrict human activity in the area to kind of keep the area in its most natural state and leave it to have its ecological functions undisturbed.
The IUCN Management Category project was initiated in 2014 so that we, as the Bahamas National Trust, can align the management categories with those on international standards. Previously, because the names of our protected areas are national parks, it was assumed that they were all management category 2 under the IUCN list. But in reality, we manage them on a variety of ways.
So the IUCN classifications range from very strict, where it's an area that only researchers are allowed to go to in limited times of the year, all the way down to areas that are called multi-use, which allow different sorts of human activities such as fishing and recreational activities like kayaking and snorkeling.
When we started the process, we had to learn about the management categories, where for the parks that we had already had a management regime in place, which category would best fit, and for those areas that we were bringing on stream over the next 10 years, we would also had to future plan categories we would assign them.
So in the Bahamas, we recently started adding new protected areas that are a little bit different than some of the ones we've had in the past. So by using and looking at IUCN classifications, we can find marine protected areas in different parts of the world that are very similar or would fall under the same classification. So that helps us create a proper management plan and understand how best to protect this area.
The Biopharma Project provides funding and technical support for any organizations or even countries that want to develop and increase capacity within their management authorities. So we worked alongside with them and they brought on experts, people with technical know-how to teach us and guide us through the process of getting the categories assigned to the areas. And so you then have to be really honest with yourself and realize that the category you may want to fit is not really the right fit for the protected area, or two, you might need to reflect how you manage a particular area. But then if you change to be more restrictive, you really want to have the science to support changing that management regime. In the past, the solution to most management problems was to remove people from the equation. But in more recent years, we've realized that's not the best approach.
I believe there is a huge gap between conservationists and the public. Fishermen also want to protect their resources. We just need to show them that we are trying to work with them and not against them. So conservationists really should start seeing the full picture and understand how important science communication is to bridge the gap between us and the fishermen and the other types of stakeholders in the community. One example I can think of is a particular island in the Bahamas that already had a marine protected area, and they were very, very against having any more. But after repeated visits and repeated conversations, they were able to start opening up to us more, and it turned out that they actually identified areas that they wanted as, that very restricted, limited human interaction. And it's so nice to see when they got invested and involved in this, because now we know that we won't need to hire too many staff for that island because the community members are going to make sure that nobody's going to mess with their protected area.
So, lessons learned throughout that process. You need to have a lot of information, and you need to have on-the-ground information. And so we need to continue to improve our management approaches to involve those in the community to have a greater understanding of the areas and how they're being utilized.
So I think with anything, as humans evolve and as things and needs change, the IUCN classification should and could be revisited. It would be helpful to maybe flesh them out a bit more and make categories a bit more flexible. I think some of them are very rigid, and it's hard to adapt them to real-world situations. For example, we have areas that would be considered in Category 5 as multi-use, but then they do have those pockets that would be considered Category 1. But right now, the classifications don't make room for that. So I think the classifications could have a bit more flexibility when it comes to multi-use areas.
So for the Bahamas, our goal is to be sustainably managing our national park system and to be stewards of our environment. And if we can do our part, even as small as it is for a country like the Bahamas, then hopefully we can inspire the larger countries to really do their part.
I would say my goal for marine protected areas and just marine conservation in the Bahamas would be to remove this myth that humans are separate from nature. I think the Bahamian people have had this misconception that our islands are separated by water, which is the ocean, when really that's what connects us not only to each other, but back to nature itself.